The Royal Observatory sat at the highest point of the Academy, a glass dome that offered an unobstructed view of the surrounding cosmos. As Kieran approached, he noted the absence of guards, unusual for a space frequented by the heir to the 12 galaxies. The observatory doors slid open at his approach. Inside, the vast chamber was dimly lit, the ceiling a perfect transparent hemisphere, revealing the breathtaking expanse of stars. At the center stood Princess Zara, her back to him as she manipulated a complex three-dimensional star chart. "You're punctual," she said without turning, a rare quality among diplomats. "I'm not a diplomat," Kieran replied, "just a mathematician." She turned then, and Kieran was momentarily taken aback. Gone was the formal regalia of her station. Instead, she wore a simple tunic of midnight blue that seemed to blend with her twilight skin. Her silver-violet eyes reflected the starlight from above. "No," she agreed. "You're not a diplomat, which is precisely why this conversation interests me." She gestured to the star chart. "What do you see?" Kieran stepped closer, examining the swirling patterns of light. It was a map of energy currents flowing between star systems, similar to the matrices they'd created in class, but on a galactic scale. "It's the Nidarian Energy Network," he said, recognizing the configuration. "The power distribution system that connects the central systems of the 12 galaxies." "Correct. And it's failing." Kieran looked up sharply. "Failing? But the Nidarian network has powered the central worlds for centuries." Zara's expression was grim. "Yes, but the network was designed for 12 key worlds. We now try to supply power to over 300. She manipulated the chart, and red warning indicators appeared throughout the system. These instabilities have been increasing for the past decade. The royal scientists predict total network collapse within 5 years. "Why show this to me?" "Because," she said, moving closer, "your approach to energy manipulation today was unlike anything our scientists have considered. If the conventional wisdom of 3,000 years cannot solve this problem, perhaps we need—" "What did you call it?" "A different perspective." Kieran studied the network more carefully now. The complexity was staggering, millions of energy pathways connecting hundreds of worlds across unfathomable distances. "This is why you're here at the Academy instead of in the royal court," he realized aloud. "You're looking for a solution. My father rules the current realm. I must secure the future one." There was weight in her voice, the burden of responsibilities Kieran could barely comprehend. For the next few hours, they dissected the problem together. Kieran broke down the mathematical principles behind his energy matrix theory, while Zara applied her encyclopedic knowledge of the existing network. Neither noticed as the Academy's artificial night cycle deepened around them. "If we reconfigure these junction points," Kieran suggested, manipulating the hologram, "and implement a recursive feedback loop based on the principles I outlined in class, the efficiency could increase by nearly 40%, Zara finished, her eyes widening. "But the implementation would require simultaneous adjustments at all 300 nodes. Kieran nodded. "It would be the largest coordinated engineering project in the history of the 12 galaxies." Zara stared at the modified network, now glowing a healthy blue in their simulation. "It could work," she whispered, almost to herself. When she looked up at Kieran, something had changed in her expression. The royal mask had slipped, revealing something more vulnerable, more real. "Do you know why there are no other humans at the Royal Academy, Kieran Marshall?" The sudden change of subject caught him off guard. "I assumed Earth was too primitive to qualify most candidates." "No, it's because humans are feared." "Feared? We can barely reach our own moon without help." Zara's laugh was without humor. "Your technology, yes, is primitive. But your minds," she gestured to the reconfigured network. "You conceptualize differently. You see patterns where others see only chaos. You imagine possibilities where others see only what is." She moved closer to him. "In all my studies of the ancient texts, do you know what the early visitors to your world called humans?" Kieran shook his head. "Starbreakers," she said softly. "Because your kind has never met a boundary you didn't question, a limit you didn't challenge, or a star you didn't dream of reaching. The air between them seemed to shimmer with something unspoken, Kieran was acutely aware of how close she stood, how the starlight played across her luminescent skin. "Is that why you resented my presence?" he asked. "Fear. I didn't resent you," she corrected. "I was curious. And now?" Her eyes held his. "I'm intrigued." Before Kieran could respond, a soft chime sounded throughout the observatory. "The proximity alert," Zara explained, stepping back. The royal mask slipped back into place. "Someone's coming." Moments later, the observatory doors opened to reveal 3 young women in royal insignia. Members of Zara's usual entourage. "Your Highness," the tallest one spoke, eyeing Kieran with poorly disguised contempt. "The hour is late. The directress was concerned when you missed the evening protocols." "As you can see, Lyra, I am perfectly fine," Zara replied coolly. "Mr. Marshall and I were discussing theoretical applications of his energy matrix." Lyra's expression made it clear what she thought of that explanation. "Of course, Your Highness. Still, it would be inappropriate for you to remain alone with an Earth male at this hour." Kieran could feel the shift in the room's atmosphere. The easy intellectual rapport of moments ago was replaced by rigid protocol and unspoken hierarchies. "We've made significant progress," Zara said, turning to Kieran with formal politeness. "I would like to continue our discussion tomorrow, my private study, after 4th period." "It would be my honor, Your Highness," Kieran replied, matching her tone. As he left the observatory, he felt Lyra's glare burning into his back. He'd made more than just an intellectual impression tonight. He'd made enemies. The next morning, the academy was abuzz with rumors. Kieran felt the stares as he made his way to his first class, interspecies diplomatic history. Alara caught up to him in the corridor. "What did you do?" she hissed, her antennae quivering with agitation. "Good morning to you too," Kieran replied dryly. "This isn't a joke, Kieran. Half the royal court is saying you spent the night with the princess." Kieran stopped walking. "What? That's ridiculous. We were in the observatory working on a theoretical problem. Until the early hours, alone, in the most romantic spot in the academy," Alara pointed out. "And now you're invited to her private study? Do you have any idea how this looks?" Before Kieran could respond, a group of students approached, all wearing the insignia of various royal houses. At their center was Lyra, her silver eyes cold as she regarded Kieran. "Earth male," she said, the term itself an insult in her mouth. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but let me make something abundantly clear. Princess Zara Lelvarian is the future ruler of the 12 galaxies. She is destined to forge alliances through a political union with one of the great houses." Her gaze flicked dismissively over him. Not to waste her time with a primitive scholarship case, Kieran met her gaze steadily. "I appreciate your concern for the princess's schedule, but I believe she's capable of deciding how to allocate her own time." A murmur ran through the gathered students. No one spoke to Lyra Kavor, daughter of the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Fleet, in such a manner. Lyra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Here's a history lesson they won't teach you in class, human. The last time your kind got too involved with galactic politics, it ended with an entire star system quarantined. Your Earth exists in freedom now only by the grace of the Lelvarian throne." "Is that a threat?" Kieran asked calmly. "A reminder of your place?" She smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "Accidents happen at the academy all the time. Airlock malfunctions, shuttle crashes. It would be a shame if Earth lost its only representative." With that, she and her entourage swept past, leaving a wake of whispers behind them. Alara looked pale. Her normal peachy complexion faded to a sickly white. "Kieran, Lyra Kavor doesn't make idle threats. Her family controls the military forces of 3 galaxies." Kieran watched the retreating backs of the royal students. What did she mean about Earth and a quarantined star system? Alara glanced around nervously. "It's not spoken of in polite company, but there was an incident about 200 years ago. A human explorer made contact with the Arcturian Empire before Earth was officially recognized. He shared information about your planet's history, your wars, your rapid technological development. The Arcturians became convinced that humans were too dangerous to be allowed free access to galactic technology. What happened? The Arcturians planned to sterilize Earth, Make an example of Ayatid. Alara's voice had dropped to barely a whisper. The Lavarian dynasty intervened, but at great political cost. They placed Earth under their direct protection, but agreed to limit human expansion and technology sharing. That's why Earth has so little contact with the wider galactic community even now. Kieran absorbed this in silence. Everything he thought he knew about Earth's place in the cosmos was being rewritten. Not a backwater planet deemed too primitive for notice, but a world considered so potentially dangerous it had to be contained. And now you've caught the attention of the future Lavarian queen, Alara continued. You can see why certain factions might be concerned. The warning chime for first period echoed through the corridor. I have to get to class, Kieran said. But thank you, Alara, for telling me the truth. She caught his arm. Be careful with Princess Zara, Kieran. Whatever she sees in you, whether it's your mind or something else, it's dangerous for you both. As he made his way to class, Kieran's thoughts swirled like the energy matrices he'd been modeling. Princess Zara, the fate of Earth, the failing Nidarian network, and the thinly veiled threats from Lyra Kavor, all pieces of a puzzle he was only beginning to understand. One thing was certain, his scholarship year at the Royal Academy had just become far more complicated than advanced mathematics.